And welcome to the Pride of Detroit midweek podcast, the 1 week call First Bite. It's our midweek interview show where we bring in a special guest. We are in the middle of our draft review process. We are all the way to Derrick Barnes, the Lions' fifth pick in the fourth round. Before we get into all that, my name is Jeremy Reisman. I am the editor-in-chief at Pride of Detroit and your co-host for First Bite. With me, as always, is Ryan Matthews at Ryan_POD. Ryan, how we doing?
A little decorum today. You know, the podcast was kind of off the rails this week, but this is our serious suit and tie show.
Yes, we're trying to bring it all back to some seriousness and hopefully to bring some of that decorum with them. We have Mike Carmin, the beat writer for the Purdue Boilermakers over at the Journal and Courier. Mike, how you doing today?
I didn't know it was dress-up day.
I mean,
I'd have put on a tropical shirt if that was the case.
It's all relative, to be honest. I mean, anything would be a little bit more dressed up than Monday's show. But anyways, let's put that behind us. Let's talk about Derrick Barnes. That's who we're here to talk about. I would say a very intriguing pick from the Detroit Lions, one that fans are definitely excited about. I think just by mirror of the linebacker position being a weakness for this team for so long. Before we get into his skills as a linebacker, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Derrick Barnes as a person, Mike, because we haven't really had a chance to talk to him much so far.
Well, at least early in his career, we had a chance to talk to him
Right.
before COVID. So Derrick's a guy that came in same year that Jeff Brom came into Purdue back in 2017. He was part of that first class. And he played linebacker that first year for Purdue and kind of went full circle.
Right.
But Derrick's always been a kind of a pleasant player to deal with, at least from a media standpoint. Very engaging personality. Kind of knows. Yeah, he's very, very confident in his abilities. Very confident in what he's trying to say. But he's been a good person here at Purdue to deal with, and the fact that Detroit traded up to get him kind of speaks how Detroit feels about him and kind of the progress that he has made throughout his career, especially this past season, for him to get in that position to be drafted in the fourth round.
Yeah, and originally, Mike, he was just a two-star recruit coming out of high school and originally committed to Toledo, but then flipped to Purdue. Did that have a lot to do with Jeff Brom getting hired in and him making the switch? Do you know?
Yeah, it did, because Jeff would have been recruiting him at Western Kentucky before he came to Purdue. So Jeff did a lot of that his first year, where guys that they were recruiting at Western Kentucky, he tried to get them to come to Purdue, and he had a lot of success in that. And Derrick's one of those guys that he had success with. And, for Derrick, it was a no-brainer. You go from the MAC to the Big Ten, an opportunity to play, at one of the highest levels against some of the better teams in the country. And I do think that kind of has helped Derrick progress and improve throughout his career, is the fact that he did play against the Ohio States and the Michigans and the Penn States and all those kind of programs. So I think he's put himself in a good position to have a long NFL career.
Yeah, and I kind of want to talk about that, kind of coming in as an unassuming two-star recruit. Was there any point, whether it was in practice or maybe in those early years where he's just kind of a role player, where he stuck out to you as someone like, oh no, this guy is going to be a playmaker here at Purdue and maybe even play on Sundays?
Well, the first thing you have to understand about Purdue football is that most of their team usually are two-star recruits, 2 and 3-star recruits.
Sure.
They do not get 5-star guys very often. They do get talented guys. Jeff Brom has upgraded the talent in a lot of areas, but across the board, they're going to get under the radar guys. Here's the thing with Derrick. He came in as a freshman. He was a middle linebacker, and they had some injuries that first year. And I remember they went to Wisconsin middle of October, and Derrick all of a sudden needed to start. He was going to be in the starting lineup against Wisconsin. Well, at the time, the Badgers have, first of all, one of the greatest offensive lines of college football, usually, but also Jonathan Taylor, who was a freshman. Third play of the game, Derrick goes the wrong direction, Jonathan Taylor blows by him for a 69-yard touchdown.
Nice.
And so his career got off to a little bit of rocky start. He had played earlier in the season, some special teams and filled in at linebacker, but that was his first start. Well, he's in there again on the next series, and Wisconsin scores again. So he comes out of the game. I think he settles down a little bit, but from that point on, he played well enough throughout his career, even changing positions, that you could see the progress, you could see the improvement, and he just, he got into the deep end early, but got out of it, and all to his credit, put himself in a position. I mean, I was kind of hoping he would come back to Purdue for another year, just because I thought he had made a lot of strides last season, and I just, here's an opportunity for a guy maybe to improve his stock even more in the NFL. But, after thinking about it and looking at it, he made the right decision. He went while his stock was pretty high, and I think this is going to work out for him.
That's interesting. I like that story a lot because I feel like it shows a bit of mental toughness, right? Like you go through that in your first big action in a big game against Wisconsin, that could send a lot of people in a downward spin. But to see him kind of bounce back, whether maybe not immediately, but throughout his career is definitely a positive sign, I would say.
Oh, very much so. And the fact that they moved him from linebacker to what they call their Leo position, which is kind of a rush in spot. And he kind of struggled early, but the second half of his junior season, he just kind of caught on. And he was making plays in the backfield. He was harassing the quarterback. He was getting tackles for loss. He seemed to be very comfortable at that position. So then at the start of the 2020 season in spring practice, before, COVID really set in, they had moved him back to middle linebacker. And those of us that cover Purdue were kind of like scratching our heads. It's like, well, why are you doing this? I mean, here's a guy that really he probably was the most improved player on the defense the second half of 2019 based on how he was playing. And now, although it's his natural position, you're going to move him back. But then the way he played in the 6 games that Purdue played last season, it was the right move. I mean, it's one of few things Purdue did right defensively last year, but he was a tremendous player for a defense that struggled. Just the way he played sideline to sideline and showed off his athletic ability was really impressive to me.
Well, I think that's a great story, Mike. They just told us about the Wisconsin and then making the position change from playing linebacker to playing that Leo, that kind of edge rusher role. What would you attribute a lot of Derrick's success to at Purdue? Because it seems like he was put in a lot of situations and a lot of scenarios where he had to kind of hit the ground running and kind of learn on the job, so to speak. So, what would you attribute a lot of his success to? Because it sounds like he's a pretty smart football player.
Well, I think you hit it right there. He is a smart football player, understands what needs to be done to put himself in that position. Here's a guy, I mean, this is a common theme with a lot of these guys, but, just the work that he put in to be the best at whatever position he was going to play. And that showed off when he was playing end. I mean, he put the time in knowing that's the position they needed him to play. So once he got comfortable in that position, he just kind of took off. And it was same thing back with linebacker. Now, he didn't have as much to learn returning to linebacker as he did with defensive end, but just the way that he embraced it and the way that he went about his work. And he's not once you get to talk to him, he's not a loud, boisterous guy, but he's more of a lead by example guy. And I think that's kind of what he brought to Purdue's team. And on both sides of the ball, just his leadership, and he really grew into that part and took ownership in that part. I mean, that's the other thing. Some guys, they want to be a captain, they want to be a leader, but he really embraced it. And he had, he would have to say things and do things to be that leader, and I think he did that, and I think that helped him grow not only as a player but as a person.
Let's jump a little bit into like the specifics of his game and what makes him good. And I want to start as a pass rusher, and I'm not sure if the Lions plan on using him that much in that, but it seems like that's a a tool he has in his tool belt a bit. Like you said, really came on towards the end of 2019. I think he had 7.5 sacks that entire season, which again kind of verifies what you were saying. Like, it seemed like a head scratching move at the time to move him back to off ball linebacker. But what makes him good as a pass rusher? Is it just pure speed, or is he kind of a technician when he's rushing the passer?
I think this is overall athletic ability. And, to be honest, I'm not sure we saw that when he played linebacker early in his career, because, those guys are a little bit confined in where they play and how they play, especially if you're the middle linebacker. You're either going 5 feet to the left, 5 feet to the right, or you're going straight ahead. You typically don't go back that much, but you're usually playing forward. But when he played end, just as his athleticism kind of showed off, because he was out on the edge, he was out in space, he had to make plays in space, he had to drop back in pass coverage, he had to do a lot of different things that maybe he didn't do all the time at linebacker. And I really think that probably helped him just overall grow into the player that he has become. But he's kind of sneaky fast, he's very strong, but strength is relative to the day that you use it in the NFL, because there are 100 guys stronger than you are that you have to go up against. But he's got excellent technique, and I think that comes from a lot of the coaching and teaching that he received early in his career at Purdue. I think he's got a lot of the ingredients there that fit into a total package. But he's fast enough, and if you watch some film from last year, he made some plays where he had to go sideline to sideline, and whether he just knocking the guy out of bounds or whatever, but he was able to recover and make a play for them. And, I just think once he kind of gets in some open space, I think, his quickness and his speed kind of come to the surface.
All right, good stuff from Mike Carmin, the beat writer for Purdue at Journal and Courier. When we come back, we're going to continue with Mike, talk a little bit about what we think about Derrick Barnes' future as a Detroit Lion now that we know about his past at Purdue. So stick with us here on First Bite. We'll be right back. Okay, let's talk with our live chat for a second. If you need a second to settle in there, Mike, go for it. Really quick, Mathis, thank you for the 6-month subscription here on Twitch. Appreciate it. Midnight Lions podcast. Oh man, where are you at? Where is it midnight in the world right now? Is it England-ish? Probably.
Always thought it was
about right.
Always thought it was 5 o'clock somewhere, not midnight.
Ain't that the truth?
And then Big Gal came in with the 10 straight months of subscription. 10 months. Wow, indeed. Dylan, what's up, man? Thanks for stopping by. We got some people talking Pistons in the chat.
Yeah.
A lot of people are excited about the Pistons. Yeah, a lot of people are excited about the Pistons right now.
And the last time that happened was
1970. Mr. Bob Lanier.
Bob Lanier.
You know what? Yeah, St. Bonaventure. Do you well, I think maybe we can kind of out Mike right now.
Yeah, you want to out Mike him? Let's go for it.
Yeah. He is a Chicago Bears fan. He seems like an all right guy though. So, what about basketball? Do you follow NBA at all? Do you have a
Not really. I mean, I know what's happening, but for me to sit down and watch an NBA game, there would have to be absolutely nothing else there, or I'd have to be like, that's the only channel that's on.
Yeah, and the remote is on the other side of the room.
But yeah, no, I'd go up and get it, but it'd have to steal the remote from me, or there'd be no batteries in the house and it didn't work. I mean, I don't hate the NBA. I watch it. I'll watch a few minutes of the playoffs here and there, and I actually did watch the draft lottery last night as I was flipping around, just to kind of there's some drama in that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's good.
I just kind of like drama to see. I had a casual interest in the Pacers, and if the Pacers still played with the red, white, blue ball, I'd be all in. But that's the ABA, and that shows my age. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think I'm in the exact same boat in terms of the NBA. Like, as much as people hate on the lottery system, people love watching the lottery.
Well, yeah, because it determines something.
Yeah.
You get an outcome out of it, and I mean it's great. I just what's Cade Cunningham is going to be the number one pick.
Yeah.
I mean, I cover Purdue basketball, so I have to have some sort of interest in basketball and some of these college players. I mean, to me, he might be the number one pick, but I have no idea if he's that surefire pick that's going to carry a franchise into the playoffs and to an NBA championship. I don't know if there's anybody in that draft that can do that this year.
Well, yeah, that's just kind of the question mark, right? Is that seems like there's at least 3 or 4 guys that are like at the top where it's like, I don't know, pick your flavor. It seems like Cunningham is kind of, in that proverbial, cream that's, rise to the top. But Purdue had a pretty good season. They were a really competitive Big Ten team. I really liked watching them last season. Their big guy in the middle is just such a throwback player.
Which one? Travion Williams or Zach Edey?
Williams. The Edey seems like, I mean, there's a little bit of of novelty to him, right? Just because he's so big. But
he's 7'6" and moves like he's 6'5".
I know. It's amazing to watch that, and it would be so impressive because it seemed like he would come in a game and he would be like 6 for 6, like 13 points, 8 rebounds, and just completely change the entire game, or he would just get completely washed away. Right. It was really interesting to watch. But Williams, he's just the kind of guy that I love. I wish those guys still existed in the NBA.
He is a tremendous passer, sometimes to a fault. Because he will not look when he's passing, and he'll throw it over his head, over his shoulder, hoping that the guy is there in the corner. Most times they are, but sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
But he's got a long way to go to be an NBA player.
Yeah.
He's got to improve his outside game, and that's something Purdue doesn't need him to do. They need him on the block.
What year is he? Is he a junior?
Yeah, he'll be a senior this year. So this is his last year. He put his name in the NBA draft, but he'll take that out here shortly, and because he didn't get invited to the combine or anything like that. So he'll be coming back. But this upcoming year will be his last year.
That's good, though. I mean, there'll be some good competition in the Big Ten this year.
No, they have Purdue has everybody back.
Oh, nice.
Should be. I mean, Michigan will be up there. Purdue will be up there, and your other regular characters will be up there as well. But,
Ohio State and
Yep.
All right.
Did we talk enough Big Ten basketball for the chat?
I think so. I mean, I wasn't aware that college basketball existed outside of March, but
Trust me, it does.
It's a long, arduous season.
November has turned into the longest month in the history of guys ever football and basketball.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh boy.
November tends to be pretty quiet around Detroit. Right after Thanksgiving happens, and then it's just like, all right, well.
November is really the litmus test, right? It's like the litmus test for the Lions season. Like either it's like the make or break. Like once the calendar turns, it's like, all right, either they can bounce back or we can just kind of tuck things in for the rest of the year.
I mean, I have seen a game. I did watch a game in the old Tiger Stadium, if that means anything.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Oh, awesome. I think that's where my dad saw his first game too.
Lovely sight lines. I mean, you cannot beat the sight lines they had there in that place.
At a baseball stadium.
Yeah. I mean, it was wonderful sight lines. And I'm sure there was some bad seats in the house because center field was like 440 feet from home plate.
Yeah.
But I think in the grandstand area, I don't think there was a bad seat, and you got pretty good sight lines down there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
All right, let's jump back into it.
All right.
You guys ready?
All set.
All right. And we are back here on First Bite talking about Derrick Barnes with Purdue beat writer for the Journal and Courier, Mike Carmin. You can find him at Carmin_JC on Twitter. Mike, let's talk about your projection, let's say, to the NFL level with Derrick Barnes. And let's just start with physical traits and what you think translates best about his game to the next level, because obviously the college game and the professional game are completely different, but obviously the Lions took him in the 4th round expecting him to something to translate. So what do you think, I guess, is his best asset that will translate to the next level?
Well, I do think his speed will be on par with most people he has to compete with and also play against. His strength will also be there as well. But he's going to be the type of guy that's really, I think, going to have to ease his way into things. And, if that means he's got to be a special teams player for a lot of his rookie season or first season, then so be it. I don't know if he can jump right in and be a starter from day one. A lot of dynamics are there, and you have injuries, you have other factors that go into that. And I don't know if he's an every down guy to start. I think eventually he can get to that point. Mm-hmm. I think he has the physical skills to be an every down player, but he'll have to improve his pass coverage. And if he's lined up, for example, if Detroit's playing Arizona and the guy that Arizona took in the 2nd round, Rondell Moore, slot receiver from Purdue.
Yep.
If Derrick has to line up on him, I think Rondell's going to win that matchup. First of all,
yeah, for
a lot of reasons. But I think he's got some work to do. He's got some studying to do. It's not only as you guys know, it's not as much the physical abilities, because everybody in the NFL has the physical abilities. Yeah. But I think Derrick will have a chance to separate himself throughout his career based on kind of his mental approach and how he goes about that part of it. And I think he's a very smart player. He understands, and he's going to work on that part as much as his physical part to get on the field and play. But I see it easing into it for him. And I do think he can, if he can do that and get in the right system and the right setup, I think he can stick around for a long time and be a productive player in the NFL.
Well, so, a lot of good things to say about, his physicality and his strength and things like that. But here in Detroit, over the past few years with Matt Patricia as the Lions head coach, linebackers have fit this very particular mold. They've been big, hulking, bruising guys. Now, it seems like Derrick Barnes is a guy who has a lot more speed than any of the linebackers that we've seen in Detroit here in the past, few years. To make things, I guess, a little bit more palatable, like, is there anything that you see out of Derrick Barnes that you see on Sundays in terms of like, oh, he reminds me of this player, or he has shades of this player to his game, maybe on Sundays that you can think of?
Not off the top of my head. I don't know. Who he.
Yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I know it's a tough question, but
no, it's a fair question, and it's just a hard question to answer because you don't know every trait of every linebacker that's out there. But based on what you were saying, if they're shifting their philosophy on getting, what type of linebackers they're getting, if they want more mobile linebackers, guys that can go sideline to sideline and do some different things, I think Derrick has a chance to fit that. If they were still looking for big, bulky linebackers that, they wanted to win at the line of scrimmage all the time, I'm not sure Derrick's going to be your guy for that. I mean, he's going to have to do some of that, but I think his biggest strength will be his kind of overall athleticism and just kind of how he fits into whatever scheme that Detroit wants to do. But it is hard to kind of to answer that because you just don't know every single other linebacker out there that he wouldn't be the top of the line linebackers. So my NFL knowledge on linebackers kind of stops with the guys that are making plays on the regular basis. So
Khalil Mack.
Yes, that's a guy. He's not Khalil Mack, but he can.
Oh, bummer. Yeah. Well, so the one other kind of quick sidebar is, he, kind of a smaller guy, right? Like 6 foot, 238 pounds. So, I mean, he's got something on his frame, but was that ever anything that you saw as a detriment to his playing ability was his size or no?
Well, I mean, it depends on the game. It depends on the situation. I mean, when they played Michigan and when they played some of the bigger and better Big Ten schools, he was undersized just because they just had bigger guys. But I think you go back and obviously the Lions have studied the film. Other teams have studied the film on him. It's kind of what you do with what you have, and I think that teams saw enough out of him, maybe against an Ohio State, maybe against a Penn State or a Michigan, that here's a guy that can, he may not fit the prototypical model of what you want, size, all that from a linebacker, but he brings other intangibles there that kind of push him to the top. And that's the thing I kind of hate about recruiting in college football is there are a lot of programs that just, okay, if you're not this height, you're not this weight, you don't have this wingspan, then you're not going to be able to play for us. And that's hard. That's hard to, because a player can do nothing about his height.
Right.
I mean, he just can't.
Right.
I mean, it's there. I mean, there's an example. I mean, there's a kid here in town, for example, goes to one of the local high schools. I watched him play in high school. Now it's high school, but he has a tremendous motor on the defensive line. He's a guy that gets after it, but he doesn't fit the Division I or high level Division I height for a defensive lineman. So he's not getting any offers, and Purdue's not really close to offer. Purdue may offer him and they may not, just because he doesn't fit that height. But if you look deeper inside to how he plays and how he goes about it, he's a guy that can potentially help you down the line. And that's, and it takes some convincing. And it's just like the discussions the pro scouts have and the general manager. It's like, yeah, he's not 6'4", but he's 6'2", and he can do A, B, and C here.
Right.
Where the guy that's 6'4" can't do A.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think Derrick's got some things to overcome, but I think he's got the mindset to overcome them, and and I do think he will.
Right. And yeah, I think a lot of it is about the coaches putting him in the right positions, right? Like you said, don't put him in a position where he's going to be matched up against a guard or anything like that. And it's interesting because one guy that certainly had his eye on Derrick Barnes the whole time is Chris Spielman. Who's in the Lions front office right now, and he said specifically before the draft he wanted this defense to get faster. He wanted this team to get faster, and I think Derrick Barnes fits exactly that. And I've seen Chris Spielman keep an eye on Derrick Barnes specifically during minicamp, so he's going to have a heck of a mentor, so to speak, in the Lions front office there with Spielman. You mentioned maybe he's a special teamer in his first season. Is that something he did a lot at Purdue, and does he kind of have that? I mean, it's tough to be a special teamer in this league. Like, you have to have a certain type of mentality, a physical mentality, really just kind of a team above all mentality, because it's not exactly the most luxurious of duties to do on a team. Do you think Derrick Barnes will have any sort of issue if that's his role in year one?
No. I mean, he started out playing special teams at Purdue. And the beauty about playing special teams in the NFL is you still get paid.
Right.
You still get paid. True. It doesn't, if you're a rookie, doesn't matter if you play linebacker or special teams, you still get paid.
Yeah.
So there's that
good
part
point.
of it. But I think in the NFL, and I'm just guessing here, that just getting on the field and playing special teams helps rookies kind of adjust to the speed of the game.
Sure.
And understand exactly what they're dealing with. And I think that's the same way in college. You can put some true freshmen out there in college, so they get a feel for the game, a feel for how fast it is, even if you're just running down the field once, or you're involved in some physical play, whether it be on a kickoff return or a punt return. It just kind of gets you going a little bit. And I think something like that can help Derrick or any other player just kind of ease their way into the program, so they feel a little bit more comfortable, because that first preseason game, his head's going to be spinning, and he's going to have to adjust to that, similar to what happened in his first start against Wisconsin.
Sure.
Boom, there goes Jonathan Taylor by him. Hopefully for him, the same thing, if you're playing the Colts in the preseason, hopefully the same thing doesn't happen to him this time. But yeah, I think special teams, I think he will embrace it. And I think any way to get on the field, those guys are going to do it.
Yeah, and beyond special teams, Mike, for Derrick Barnes as a player, you talked about those adjustments he had to make while he was at Purdue, playing off the ball, then playing some of that Leo role. Where do you think that his skill set will best translate maybe at the NFL level? Like, do you think it'll be like maybe on the edge as kind of like a pass rusher, or do you think that it might be better to kind of put him off the ball and let him do his thing sideline to sideline that way?
Well, I mean, a lot depends on what system Detroit's going to run and how they want to utilize him. I think he can play. I think eventually he can get to a point where he can play linebacker, play the middle, and be able to handle that. But if they need him to come off the ball, or if they need an extra pass rusher because of an injury or something like that, I think his versatility really helps him in that area where he's just not a one-dimensional player, where he can come off the edge. He can learn that position. So, I mean, a lot of it just kind of depends on what Detroit needs from him, or, down the line, whatever other team needs from him if he's not a Lion. It's just, as you talked about, they're getting away kind of from the bulky linebackers. Maybe he can fit in an outside position, maybe a little bit better. But I do think that he's going to have the traits to do it. It's just, does he fit into the system that they want? And obviously they took him for a reason. They took him with a plan in mind. I mean, I just don't think NFL guys blindly take guys out of the sky with no plan for them. And as you mentioned, Chris Spielman has a plan for Derrick Barnes. And I like you guys, I'm kind of interested to see what that is, because, I mean, that's a tremendous mentor for him, but also to have a guy that, like Chris Spielman, who's going to have Derrick Barnes's back in this whole situation and kind of hang with him throughout some struggles, which he will have.
Yeah. Well, he very clearly was a guy that the Lions wanted, because they traded up in the in the fourth round to get him. So.
Yep. I just got a couple more for you, and this is hopefully a fun one. Kind of putting you on the spot again here, but if you could think back to Barnes' career at Purdue and point out maybe one play or one moment that kind of defines who he is as a person or player, what was it?
Wow, that's a hard one, because
or maybe a game. Was there a specific game where, like,
he had some nice games where you had a lot of tackles, involved a lot of plays. Probably the most recent one would have been last year against Rutgers. Mm-hmm. He ended up getting ejected for
targeting.
For targeting, which wasn't targeting.
No.
Which nobody knows what targeting.
It rarely ever is. Yeah.
Good old college targeting.
It was raw. It was in the open field, and it came at a key moment of the game. But I remember the game because he had played that sideline to sideline game most of the night, and Rutgers was kind of running the ball against Purdue. But then when he got ejected for targeting, it came. I think it came on a third down play where Rutgers was in the red zone, and if Purdue would have held him to a field goal, it would have given Purdue a better opportunity. Rutgers ended up winning the game, but I just remember when he got called for targeting, this kind of the whole team kind of got deflated. It's like, oh, they took our best player off an average defense, and we have no chance now. But there's not, if there was one play, it was back to what I talked about earlier. It was a negative play, but I think it was a play that kind of helped him get pushed in the right direction.
Yeah, shaped who he was.
Yeah, and I think he learned from that, and he got going after that. And again, it's kind of hard with defensive guys to single out plays, because you just sometimes that doesn't register as much. But sure. He made enough of them to put himself in a position to get drafted in the NFL.
All right. Oh, you have one more, Ryan? Go for it.
Well, I was just going to transition and say, as much as it pains me and some other Lions fans, Mike, how excited are you about Justin Fields in Chicago?
Well, I don't have a lot of trust in management. But
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if we mentioned this on air, but Mike is a Bears fan and a Bears season ticket holder.
yes, I'm not happy about a potential move to Arlington because that would add 30 minutes to my travel time to a game. But
the Arlington Bears.
Yeah, no, it'd still be Chicago. If there's a way they could do a stadium and keep the horse track there, put the horse track inside the stadium, I would be all for it. But because Arlington Park's a great place. Going into the draft, I wanted it to be a normal draft. I just wanted them to draft somebody that would help them this year, someone that would get on the field. And then when everybody saw that they had moved up, I'm like, oh my God, what are they going to do? And then not only did they move up, you're like, okay, how can they screw this up this time? I don't think they screwed it up. I would love nothing for him to be on the field for the first game, but I also understand that, you got to put your trust in the coaching staff to determine that.
Sure.
And if he's not ready, then he's not ready. He'll be ready when it's time. And I've just kind of been patient with it. Seeing him play in the Big Ten, brings a different skill set that the Bears have not had.
Sure.
It's just a matter, it's the same way with all rookies. Can he get up to the speed of the game? And is in a much different position at quarterback where he's got much more to learn. But they also have to surround him with weapons too. I worry about the offensive line. You worry about, they don't really have a number 2 receiver outside of Allen Robinson. But he needs to have some success, but he's going to fail. He's going to fail. He's going to have failures.
Yeah.
It'll be a preseason game or a regular season game. He's going to have struggles. But at the end of the day, though, very kind of happy with the pick. Hopefully the quarterback debate can stop in Chicago, whether it be this year or next year.
How much of a leash are you giving the front office and the coaching staff at this point? Is it this year or bust?
Well, I think they bought themselves some time with Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Because
strategic move, right?
Yeah, it bought management another year, I think.
Yeah.
And if Fields does well, that means the Bears are going to do well.
True.
And if management sticks around 10 years, that means the Bears are doing well, and I will hold no ill feelings toward them. But if things unravel, I guess they have to be raveled before they unravel. I'm not sure the Bears are actually raveled enough. They're like the big ball of string in the movie Vacation. They're just all together right there, right now. But they've been unraveled for a long time. So
Mike is one of the most sensible Bears fans I think I've ever spoke to in my entire life.
Being in this profession kind of forces it on you.
That's
I'm very enthusiastic when I go to games, but also I understand what's happening, why it's happening. And I should record the people that sit around us at Bears games because not only because of the language is very colorful, but some of the idiotic things that they say just I scratch my head because I just have no clue. And some of that's just, as you know, the beverages are talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's a lot of irrational fans in every fan base, but the Bears seem to have their fair share.
Yeah, we deal with a fair share of our own. I mean, if you're a Lions fan, period, I think some people would just call that delusion. But you know what? We all love each other in the end.
Everybody's got a team. Everybody roots for a team.
Yeah.
And that's just
our
kind of the way it is.
It's an extension of our family. That's how I like to put it. Anyways, that's Mike Carmin, the beat writer, the Purdue beat writer for the Journal and Courier. Thank you so much for joining us, Mike. I really appreciate it. I'll give you a moment here to plug your stuff, whether it's your Twitter account or anything maybe Lions fans or Purdue fans might be interested in hearing or reading.
I doubt that they're interested in anything that I do. I am on the Twitter machine at Carmin _J Carmin _JC. So I am on that, and sometimes I do a little 30-second video on Instagram.
Look at that.
I'm trying to be forward thinking and embracing technology.
Savvy.
as you go, I'm probably closer to retirement than I am anything else, but just trying to
Kudos to you then.
jump in with the kids. I have not, and I will not pursue anything called TikTok.
You and me both, Mike.
Yeah, he's lying though. He's a big TikTok guy and he won't admit it. Anyways, thank you all for joining us today. We'll be back with the main podcast on Monday night. We'll be doing our Green Room app for live Q&As on Saturday mornings at 10:30 a.m. Make sure you download that app and join us. But until then, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time. It's chaos. Be kind.